to Career Uprising. I'm your host and professional career coach, Lorraine Rise. Join me as I guide you through an amazing journey of self-discovery and empowerment. If you are looking for work, changing careers, or stuck in a toxic job, then this is the show for you. I offer both practical and spiritual guidance to help you up-level and advance your career. Let's start the uprising. Hey everybody, you are listening to episode 8, Defining Your Personal Brand with Michelle Robin. Hi everybody, how you doing out there? Another installment today of Career Uprising on Inflow Radio. I hope you guys are doing wonderful. I'm your career coach and your host for today, Lorraine Rise. All right, so I am so excited for what we have in store for you guys today. So we're not going live today, but that is only because I'm bringing you a wonderful and special guest that I'm going to interview in just a moment. And I'm really excited for you guys to get to know this gal, Michelle Robin. This is going to be a must listen to episode if you are looking for work or, just trying to kind of rebrand yourself, maybe reinvent yourself professionally. She's going to have some great information on how to do that. And also, when the show does air, it's going to be Memorial Day weekend. So I will go ahead and just wish you guys a wonderful Memorial Day holiday, whatever time you're listening to at. I know a lot of people listen to this on demand, but that's where we're going to be at when this goes live. So welcome and thank you for listening. However, you are listening live or digging it out of the archives. So, typically we do broadcast live Mondays at 12 Eastern and 9 a.m. Pacific. And Mondays is one of those days that kind of gets a bad rap, and everyone likes to joke about hating Mondays. Really, that's why I picked that day for the show, because I really want to change that. For me, I love Mondays. It's my show day, and I love what I do. I'm so lucky to do what I do. And I know a lot of people out there, it's not like that for them. Mondays are usually the day of the week that we dread. So we all kind of joke about having a case of the Mondays and that kind of thing. So, I want to change that. That's really a lot of the mission of this show, is to get you to a place in your professional life where you can take back your Mondays and not dread it anymore. That's what I want for you. So maybe we'll start a new hashtag, Reclaim Mondays, right? So if you're listening for the first time, I'm sharing that with you because that's really the spirit of this show. And that's why we're coming at you today on Monday to offer you some hope and some guidance and strategy and some positivity to get your week off to the right start. That's my mission. All right. So also one more little fun piece of business before we dive into the interview here with Michelle is I want to give another quick shout out here to some of the folks in my Facebook group, Career Uprising and Inflow Radio, because I have a couple more questions that I want to take a minute now to answer really quick, because they've just been rolling in. And I know I got to answer one last week on the show, but there's two more that I want to get to really quick, because I love when I get questions from listeners on the show. And these two were kind of similar, so I'm going to try and kind of knock them both out at the same time as much as I possibly can. But we had one question from Julia and another from Renee, and they both were kind of asking about generally, how do you find work in your 50s when you're not 25? How do you go about either changing careers or just getting back into the workforce if you're been out of the workforce, whatever you might be trying to do. But it is tough to do that when you are at that age in your life. And I did a great interview with a past client called Changing Careers Midlife. So if you haven't heard that one, you might want to do that. Go back and listen to that. I think that was about episode 5 or so. But let me get to their questions really quick here and answer those. And then we'll move on to our interview. But and there's just so much we can cover too on this topic. But I would say the first one. So let's go with Renee. Let me look at her question again here. So Renee has been in the workforce, it looks like, but she's wanting to change careers and asked me, what tips, what guidance do you have on changing careers when you're about 50 years old or so, and you've been doing one thing, but you kind of want to go in another direction now. And so for you, Renee, I would say that you really just want to focus on your transferable skills. All right. So those are the skills that you have that can be extended to another similar line of work, maybe, or doing the same work, but in a different industry. I've written a lot of blog articles about this. And I wrote one in particular called Transferable Skills, the key ingredient to changing careers. And I'm going to make that article available to you, Renee, but that's at the most simplest level. That's what you want to do. When you write your resume, you want to think about what are the key skills that I have and how could these apply to this next role. Now, sometimes you do have to dig a little bit deeper than that. Sometimes you have to go back to school or get a certification. So I don't know your exact situation there, Renee, what it is and how big of a change you're looking to make, but sometimes you do have to go back and get some training. But for anybody, I would say networking. Networking is big, especially when you're trying to get into a line of work that you haven't been in yet. Having connections is crucial. So I would say, Renee, find somebody, if dig into your network and see, is there anybody who is doing what you want to be doing? And if so, I want you to start conversations with them. Maybe do a little informal interview with them. And ask them, what do they love about their job? How did they get into it? If you don't know anyone who's in the line of work that you want to be doing, you might need to find somebody. I find LinkedIn to be a great resource for this. You can find perfect strangers, to be honest, who are doing what you want to be doing. And then, I would go ahead and reach out to them. What you want to do is find a mentor, find somebody who is in the line of work you want to be in and ask them how they got into it. What advice do they have for you? People absolutely love to give advice and expertise. They will be responsive to that type of message if you are looking for their advice and their expertise. Everyone loves to give free advice, right? So I think that you will find that people on LinkedIn will be open to that. So Renee, I would say find a mentor, and it's a great networking opportunity. That's really going to help you to kind of shift gears. And then the second question was for Julia, which was similar. She's at the same age and kind of at the same stage, but for Julia, she said she's actually been a homemaker. So she really doesn't have the work history, but her circumstances have changed now and she needs to get in to the workforce. So she said, what do I do? How do I even get started with this without overwhelming myself? Where do you even begin when you don't have work history behind you and you wanted to get into the workforce, let alone being in your 50s? So Julia, what I would say for you is, I know that you've been kept busy somehow during this time at home, right? Have you done volunteer work? Have you done community service or maybe even special projects through church, anything like that? Again, it comes down to you have skills. You just may not have used them in a traditional job, but you have skills. So take kind of an inventory of yourself and what kind of things you have done over the course of the last 20 years of your time at home, and think about how you can kind of channel that into your resume. And also think about too, who do you know? You also, really, my advice for you is going to be similar to my advice for Renee. Who do you know in your network that could possibly help you? I bet you any amount of money that someone that you currently know works at a company or knows someone who works at a company that would hire you. Because I think in your message, you said you were looking for administrative work. You can absolutely find that. And when you don't have a lot of, work history to support you, going into your network is even better because those people know you and trust you and they're willing to hire you or willing to refer you and vouch for you. And I'm sure there's somebody in your network who can help you along the way. So make sure your friends and family and everyone knows that you are looking for work and what you are looking for. And just ask them for their guidance, for their support, for whatever it is they may, suggestions, anything that they may have for you, okay? And you have to keep in mind too, and I'm sure you know this probably, Julia, that right out of the gate, you're probably not going to get the job that you really want. This next job or this first job that you get, it's going to be a stepping stone job. It really, really is. And it might be low paying right now, but you're going to earn more as time goes on. I want you to keep in mind, you're just looking for a stepping stone job just to get you in. And it wouldn't hurt to start talking to people in your network, start going in face to face to some of these places that you might want to work and just introducing yourself and getting some relationships going there. So I hope that helps a little bit. And I would encourage both of you, if you need more help, to call me live. That way we can actually have a conversation. I can probably help you even a little bit more in depth, but there will be most likely also a show coming all about how to find work and how to launch a job search when you are 50 plus or even 60 plus, because it really is a unique challenge at that stage. So what I'm also going to do for both Julia and Renee is pop some articles into my Facebook group, Career Uprising. I have one that I wrote a couple years ago that would be great for Julia called "I Stayed at Home to Raise My Kids. Who's going to hire me now?" So I'm gonna pop that in there right after this show airs. And then Renee, I've got a ton of articles all about changing careers, transferable skills, that type of thing. I'm gonna pop those into the Facebook group too. So anyone else who wants to join that group, you'll be able to see those articles as well and possibly benefit from them. So I love the questions. Keep them coming, definitely. And so let's go ahead and take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to introduce our guest, Michelle Robin. All right. Talk to you guys in just a second. While the show takes a short break, I want to tell you how you can work with me personally as your career coach. My signature program, Career Transformation, is perfectly designed for clients who are going through a major career transition. If you're changing fields, returning to the workforce after an absence, or maybe you're undecided on a career path, then this is the program for you. Through the coaching process, we'll gain clarity on your path and craft a job search strategy to support your big career move. If that sounds amazing, take action now by heading over to my website, worksmartcounseling.com. That's worksmart, COUNSELING.com, to learn more about the Career Transformation Program and apply for a phone call with me. All right, let's get back to the show. All right, and we are back. So as I was just saying, we have a special guest that I'm going to get ready to introduce in just a moment. So let me just tell you a little bit about who we are talking to today, Michelle Robin. So Michelle is a colleague and a personal friend of mine, and she is a personal branding expert. She has her own practice called Brand Your Career. Brand Your Career is career coaching. It's very comprehensive services, career coaching, personal branding. She also does resume writing, and she works primarily with executive level clients who are in the sales and marketing field. Now, Michelle also comes from that industry herself. So Michelle knows marketing. and not just marketing for companies anymore. Now she channels all of that experience into marketing for you, for the job seeker. And I think we all know that to be competitive in today's job market, you need to stand out from the crowd. And that's exactly what Michelle teaches clients to do. She teaches them how to define and proactively manage their personal branding, making them an irresistible candidate for employers. That's right, guys, irresistible. And let me tell you really quick how I met Michelle. So I met her, I think it was last fall. It's been about 6 or 7 months in a mastermind group that we were both in for career coaches. And she and I just had an instant connection. And since then, we've really continued to kind of stay in touch with monthly calls, coaching each other along in our businesses. And what I like is that she offers really practical strategies for job searching and personal marketing and branding. And it's all customized to the client and what they need, to your unique personality and your talents. She really works in depth, one-on-one with you. So you know when you work with Michelle that you are getting something that fits you. And there's just so much talk these days about personal branding. It's a big buzzword out there in the job market. And I know for a lot of job seekers, it really kind of mystifies them. Like, what is a personal brand? Do I have one? Do I need one? Well, according to Michelle, a brand is a characteristic or a trait that differentiates. So, like it or not, she says, we all have a personal brand. Some are created purposefully, some happen more by default. And whether you realize it or not, she says, you are a walking billboard for your beliefs, your skills, styles, and your contributions to the world. Well, Michelle, I could not agree more. So that's why I invited her on my show today. And she's going to shed some light on this concept of personal branding for us and share a lot of good best practices as well as some client stories so that you too can really thoughtfully and intentionally market yourself to employers. All right. So I think we are ready. Let's go ahead and bring Michelle on now. Hi there, Michelle. Can you hear me?
Hi, Lorraine. Yeah. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm good.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. I really, really appreciate it. And I think this is going to be beneficial for a lot of job seekers. So, Michelle, I've already given folks a little bit of background about your company, Brand Your Career, and what you do. And so I think the first thing is let's just kind of go back to basics and have you define for our listeners, what is personal branding to you? What does that mean to you? And why do you feel like it's really important for job seekers?
Sure. So to me, personal branding, I like to define it with Jeff Bezos's quote where he says, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. And because really all personal branding is your reputation. So personal branding is kind of a buzz term. It came about when Tom Peters first wrote an article back in 1997 for Fast Company all about the brand called you. And it's a great primer. If you don't know anything about personal branding at all, I would encourage people to Google that article and look it up and read it. But really, personal branding, it's just your reputation. So what is it that you want to be known for? That's what your personal brand is. You're not a product like a Pepsi or a Coke or something like that, but it's just your reputation and how people experience you.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people out there, the term personal branding, I feel like it gets a little bit of a negative connotation because people do feel like they're a product, they're being sold, right? And they feel a little bit uncomfortable with that. But it sounds like you want job seekers to know that it's not about that. It's more just about, I like the way you phrased it. It's what you want to be known for. I think that definitely puts it in a better light. So why is this important for job seekers? And what do they need to know about this when they think about their personal brand? How does it affect them in their job search?
Sure. So I mean, your personal brand is really what can help opportunities come to you versus you having to seek out opportunities. Because when you're known for, the greatest marketer since sliced bread, or whatever it is, maybe you have a specialty within marketing or within sales. You're the sales guy that is the ultimate hunter and can get new clients, and start a book of business from zero and grow it to $1 million. So those types of things, it goes back to what you're known for, are going to help you stand out from other job seekers that have similar backgrounds. So it's kind of like, what is your unique combination of skills and attributes that makes you valuable to the employer? Because that's what's going to help you stand out from the competition, especially when we're in, a really low unemployment, a low unemployment, what's the word I'm looking for? Environment.
Job market. Yeah. Yeah.
Job market too. Environment, I think, was the word I was looking for. But there's a lot of competition out there because people that have been kind of like complacent in their job are like, maybe now's the time to make a move because the unemployment is low and I feel pretty secure where I'm at in my job, so I don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to start looking. So there's a lot more competition out there. So personal branding is the way that it's going to help you stand out from your competition and help opportunities come to you. Because when your network is asked, who do you know in your network that whatever that blank is, and fill in the blank with what you do, you want people to think of you. So it's really going to help you stand out and get opportunities to come to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what every job seeker wants, right?
Of
They
course.
want more of those opportunities and for them to come a little bit more effortlessly sometimes. But so how would someone go about discovering their brand if they don't know what it is yet? What does that process look like?
Sure. There's a couple of things that you can do. And most of them are really pretty easy. One thing I always like to share with clients is really easy. Do an email survey. Pick 10 friends, family members, colleagues, former managers, and send out an email. Ask them to pick like 3 to 5 adjectives that describe you. And while you're waiting for responses to come back, also write down 3 to 5 adjectives that you think describe you. And when you start getting those answers back, see what is similar and what's different. And that might start to shed some light on how you think you are being perceived amongst your colleagues, friends, and peers, and and how you're not being perceived too. So that's one way that's easy, no cost, just a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's other ways you can explore your personal brand too. I like to rely on a couple of assessments. One is called the Fascination Advantage by Sally Hogshead, and you can actually do it for free. If you go to howtofascinate.com, go to her website, you can take that free assessment. And what she does is she classifies everybody into an archetype and tells you your top 2 advantages. So, for example, my archetype is the gravitas. So I have high alert and high trust. So people, that's what people know about me. I'm very detail oriented and very trustworthy. So, and that's one way. So another way, another assessment that I like is called 360 Reach. That was started by William Arruda. And this is a little bit more involved, but it's a survey that you send out to your friends, colleagues, peers, family too, because sometimes your family perceives you differently than your peers at work.
No way.
So,
No.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Who would ever think that?
Right.
So it's a great survey because it's totally anonymous, and the feedback you get from that survey is really insightful. Because it's really getting what others actually think of you as opposed to what you think others think of you, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So those are the couple of ways that I like to steer clients towards in order to discover what their brand is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like having it's hard for us to be objective about ourselves. So it sounds like having kind of you in there as the coach, as well as the assessments, the friends and family, having those outside perspectives. Sometimes I have found that coaching clients too, that other people know things about you that you don't. So I often ask clients myself, what do other people say you're good at? What do other people go to you for? Because other people bring that perspective. So that's interesting. So that sounds like they really need to kind of reach into their network and not be afraid to say, hey, what am I good at? Or, what do I do well? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha,
And everyone loves to give their 2 cents and advice. So it shouldn't be hard to get that feedback.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Free advice. Absolutely. So, can you give me an example of a client? Do you have like a story of a client who came in and had, maybe either no brand or a bad one, and you kind of helped turn them around? Can you kind of share a story of a client that you've worked with on this?
Yeah. I actually have 2 stories. So,
oh, great.
One story I'll tell you about a client, I'll just call him Adam. He was in sales and marketing and had been an entrepreneur. And he came to me after 30 days of searching for a job and was like, I have never had this problem before. I've never had a problem finding a job. The only thing I'm getting are these like 100% commission insurance sales jobs. And that's not what I want. And he was really struggling because he just couldn't put his finger on what was going wrong. And, when I first looked at his resume, format wise, it looked really nice. He did have achievements in there, but for the type of position that he wanted to get, which was a marketing role, like a director or VP of marketing type role, he wasn't being positioned in the right way. He had a bullet on there about how he knew how to do Photoshop and how he was a Google AdWords certified person. And those types of things don't always relate to that director VP level. They usually have people on their team that are like that. And there was nothing in his resume that was like really unique that made him stand out from other marketing people. And so when we started working together, one of the things he told me was, I'm good at marketing because I've been in the role of sales. I can break down those silos. And I was like, you can break down silos? Let's put that in your resume because that's something that's unique and different. And not everybody has that. Certainly not every marketer has had experience in sales. So it's definitely to his advantage that he comes from that perspective. And sure enough, after we made some tweaks to his resume, and that was just one of many, but we made some tweaks to his resume. And within a week of using his new resume, he had like 10 times the number of calls. He had 8 interviews set up and ended up landing a job in just 4 weeks. So it was just a matter of positioning him in the right way. He had all the right experience. It just wasn't being framed the right way.
Gotcha. That's excellent. Excellent. And do most people who come to you, would you say most clients you find don't know what their brand is and they need to discover it? Or most people, they need to change it or transform it or build it in some way? What do most people come to you needing help with in terms of their brand?
I would say it's kind of a combination. And my other story was more of a discovery story.
Okay.
So where Adam was more of, let's do a little bit of transformation. Mark was more of a discovery story. He came to me he was a sales leader, director of sales in the oil and gas industry. And he came to me wanting to kind of prepare his materials for whatever that next move might be, whenever that next move might be. So he wasn't like actively searching, but some things had been happening at his company and he wanted to be prepared. So we actually did that 360 reach survey for him. And it was really insightful, some of the things that came back, because you not only get insights about your brand, but you also get some feedback on how you're doing. So people were saying about how detail oriented he was and how he, worked really hard about bringing out, positive aspects about things, diminishing negative things. And that's some of the things that we actually worked on, because he also learned through the survey that there was a few comments about him being a micromanager. So that detail oriented him almost went negative on him. So even though it was a good trait to have, people that were reporting to him kind of saw it as a micromanager type thing. So just making him aware of those things allowed him to put some things in place to help diminish that reputation and change it into a more positive light. Because now that he had the awareness, he could definitely, show the traits that he wanted to bring out more in a positive light. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So how do you use all the assessments on clients, or do you kind of pick the one that's right for that client? How do you kind of decide which one is best, or do they all get it? The 360 reach, the fascinated advantage, kind of how do you know what's going to pull out the best for that client?
I think it depends on what a deep dive they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, I always use the Fascination Advantage and Strength Finders, which I didn't mention before, is another assessment that I use with all my clients. And for clients that want to do the 360 reach, they tend to be executive level because they have the time and patience. It takes a couple weeks to
Mm-hmm.
get that feedback. And also, the higher up you get, it tends to be the less real feedback you get in real life. So having this
Mm-hmm.
anonymous survey is a really good way to gather some of that feedback where people don't feel like it can be traced back to them, whatever they say in that survey, because it is really totally anonymous. So I tend to do the 360 reach with my more executive level clients.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, that sounds like that would be a process, but would be worthwhile and would give you some great insights. Absolutely. So,
Definitely.
what do you feel like are what are some of the biggest mistakes you see? What are some of the biggest maybe faux pas or most common mistakes that you are seeing clients make around their professional image?
Um, there's a couple of them. I would say one is definitely they're working on, like, I got to create a brand, and it's a brand. A personal brand is not something that you create. Like we talked about in the beginning, is the personal brand is like what you're known for. It's what your reputation is. So you shouldn't try to create it, because that leads to the other mistake of not being authentic. It's like the fake it till you make it, which sometimes can work in certain situations, but not
Mm-hmm.
when you're trying to promote who you are. If you're trying to change careers or something like that, sometimes faking it till you make it might have an advantage, but not when it comes to embracing your brand and figuring out what your brand is. So, because it comes out as not being authentic. And when you're not authentic, people can like see right through it, and it's not going to help you in your career at all. Um, One other mistake is they don't show their brand enough. And what I mean by this is, people are like heads down, buried in the work, and they're not doing any kind of self promotion at work. They're not doing any kind of, thought leadership. They're not out there blogging or commenting on blogging or doing any kind of guest guest blogging or anything
Mm-hmm.
to kind of show what their brand is. And they're not even saying, hey, here's the status on this project I'm working on, and we've achieved X, Y, and Z so far. Those are little things that you can do along the way to kind of make yourself known. So that's the other mistake that I see, is people aren't showing their brand enough.
Mm-hmm. And do you think they just don't know how, or are people uncomfortable? Why do you think that is that a lot of people don't show? I'm just
Um,
curious.
I think it's a combination of both. People don't want to come off sounding, like a braggart, like, oh, that's just me doing my job. They don't want to think of themselves as going, oh, I just did this awesome thing. And that's not what I'm saying to do. Um, you can promote yourself in subtle ways. You can even promote yourself by, if you've got direct reports, by boosting them up, giving them praise, because they're going to then work harder for you and make you look good, and also boost your reputation of being a good manager. Even giving your peers compliments also is going to shed you in a positive light, because you're someone that promotes other people and makes them feel good. So those all can kind of come off as brand building things without having to sound like I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. so,
Mm,
so those,
yeah,
I think it's a combination of both, Lorraine. That people are a little afraid, and they're not really sure how to do it either.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. They don't know how to do it in an authentic way, because I find that as well. And actually, the show, I think it was episode 6 that I did, Feeling Worthy of Your Own Success, I talked a lot about that a lot of people are very uncomfortable talking about themselves, and they don't know how to do it in a way that isn't bragging, it isn't overconfident, but at the same time, you need to know who you are. right? You need to know who your value is, what your value is, and be comfortable with it. There's kind of a middle ground to be found. So I like that. I like your tips there of ways that are to do it that are kind of not as direct, but still effective. I think people need that. Yeah. So what are some
Thank
best
you.
practices for getting your brand out there? Once you kind of know what it is and you know what your value is, how can you spread that message? What are some tips or best practices that you have found around really just getting visibility of your brand out there?
Yeah, in this day and age, it's so much easier to become visible. I mean, social
Mm.
media is your friend. It can be your enemy too, but most of the time it's your friend.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh.
especially LinkedIn. And I'm not saying that you've got to post every day on LinkedIn, or that you actually have to write a blog yourself. But even if you're commenting on blogs, or posting, certain things in social media, it gets your name out there and reminds people that you're out there in their network. Even if it's just saying, hey, I'm attending this industry event coming up on Tuesday, hope to see people there. It could be as simple as that. If you want to go the blogging route, you can. You can even try your hand at publishing and writing some articles for industry trade magazines. They're always looking for content, so don't think that you can't get published. You can reach out to those, internet sites or trade magazines. They're always looking for content. It's actually not that difficult to get published in some of those things if you reach
Mm.
out and make some
Mm-hmm.
connections. And even doing, guest podcasting like I'm doing here, reaches out to other people to make yourself more known. So there's lots of different ways that you can build your brand, externally. Within your company, it goes back to doing some of those things that I mentioned before, promoting your peers and praising your direct reports, even volunteering for projects that are going to use like a special skill that you have, trying to get on those projects and volunteer, even volunteering to take some things off your manager's plate, because your manager is going to be like, hey, they're going to have less work. And not only
Mm-hmm.
that, but it prepares you for going up that next level by doing some of the work that's going to be there. So there's all
Great.
different
Yeah.
types of things you can do to build your brand.
Excellent. Excellent. So, one thing that I know that a lot of clients sometimes that I work with struggle with is not appearing like a jack of all trades, because there's a lot of people out there who do have a lot of good skills. And sometimes job seekers, I think, are a little reluctant to narrow it down a little bit because they don't want to miss out on an opportunity for this or for that, because they are good at more than one thing and they have crossover skills. So do you ever see that? And what would you kind of recommend for somebody who wants to define their brand, but without looking like they can just do everything? You know what I mean? And needs to kind of narrow it
Yeah.
down. Do you ever have that?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like I
I thought
blog
so.
about it on a weekly basis, Lorraine. Um,
I thought so.
yeah, but really what I say to those people, because I hear it all the time, I want to cast a wide net so I have more opportunity because I can do job A, job B, and job C. And what that really does is it just diminishes your message and no one knows what it is exactly that you want to do. So what I say to those people are, yes, I understand you're good at A, B, and C. Which one of those things do you enjoy doing the most? Because let's
Mhm.
concentrate on that. And then let's say it's I do B really well. Okay, so you do B really well. Well, you also have skills from A and C that make you do, role B even better. So how do we bring in those other skills to support the main skill? So you really got to, I tell my clients all the time, you really have to kind of pick a road, pick a path, and then see how your other skills and attributes can support that path. And that's because it's that unique combination that's your brand. No one else has all those skills in combination. So how do those skills combine to make you do whatever it is that you do really well?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is, and I asked that too because that is a really common thing that I run into as well. Is people kind of they don't realize that you actually can open up opportunities for yourself by being a little bit more focused and a little bit more targeted, and you're not going to limit yourself. And we're not completely. I like what you said about you're not completely leaving the other skills on the table. It's more how can they work together? How can this maybe be the main skill and this is the supporting skill? That type of thing. It's not like you have to completely leave it off your resume, but let's make sure they all are cohesive and work together. Yeah,
Exactly.
I like that. So it sounds like for building your brand online, being active with postings, maybe doing some writing, getting into some groups. These are all really, really great tips. What would you say though for someone building your brand in person via, versus the online? What are the differences or nuances or tips that you might have for building it, brand with people one-on-one or at networking groups in person?
Well, in networking groups, I think it's kind of fun to, everyone gets asked that question, what do you do? And most people kind of freeze or they say, well, I'm a marketer or I'm a salesperson or I'm a whatever, you're a blank. Well, you're not defined by your job. So one way that you can kind of show your brand in person is I always like to kind of answer that question with a question. So I had a client who was in healthcare marketing, and I used this. He wasn't in the Chicago area, but there was this hospital in the Chicagoland area called Skokie Valley, and it had the nickname of Death Valley. So if you're in the Chicagoland area and you're at this networking event and someone says, hey, what do? You might, and if you're that healthcare marketer, you might say, do you remember how Skokie Valley Hospital had that nickname of Death Valley? And they'll be like, oh yeah, I would never go to that hospital. Well, then you can answer that question with, well, I help hospitals and healthcare institutions turn their reputation around so they build a better community and get a better reputation. And then that story sticks with someone and it's an engaging conversation and people will remember you. So those are things that I like to do when you're in person. And even in a one-on-one situation, when you're going to meet someone for coffee, come to them with come prepared and go and look at their list of people who they know and say, would so-and-so be a good connection for me because I'm trying to do X. So when you come in prepared, that also speaks to your brand of being responsible and respectful of their time and knowing and being clear in your message. So those are different ways that you can show your brand in person.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So what would you say for someone who is kind of new to this concept of maybe personal branding or doesn't know what theirs is yet? What would be just maybe a simple first step? What are some just kind of initial quick steps that they can take to kind of start working on improving it or discovering it? What would be like number one step, do you think?
I think that initial first step is what I mentioned early on about emailing, pick 10 friends, colleagues, combination of friends and colleagues, and just send them out a note and say, hey, I'm doing a little bit of self-discovery. Can you help me out? Can you name 3 adjectives that remind you of me, and send them back? Because that's a great first step to start getting real reactions of people and what they think of you. So, and it's easy. It's you're not going to approach total strangers with that. So these are people that are in your network. So it shouldn't be too intimidating to reach out and just, do a friendly ask and get some insights that way.
Have you ever worked with anyone though that had some resistance to that, to reaching out to and getting feedback from people that they know? Have you ever had to kind of overcome that or, kind of convince someone that it was going to be worthwhile and beneficial in their search? I'm just curious if there's anyone, if most people are pretty open to it, or if anyone resists it.
I really haven't, and I volunteer at a nonprofit, and I always offer that up as a solution to get some advice. And most people are like, oh, never thought to do that. So that's usually I get I never thought about doing that reaction versus I'm too afraid. But maybe because I'm dealing with people who are already in the mindset of job search. So it's already a little bit at top of their mind that they got to do something. It's not too terrible. You know, like I said, you're
Yeah,
approaching
yeah.
people, they're not going to be.
Right, right, right. So as far as an online presence, do you feel like LinkedIn is really where it's at? Do you work with clients on any other social media platforms? Do you, when you work with them, do you look at their Facebook or anything like that? Or do you primarily stick to their LinkedIn? Talk to me kind of about the different social media platforms and how that plays in. What should they be? Should they be cleaning them all up? Should they not worry about some? What's kind of your take on that?
Primarily, I work with people on LinkedIn. Um, I would say Twitter and Facebook can also be used for your brand, because you got to remember that recruiters are out there, they're checking your social media sites, especially if you're in the marketing world already. So I always tell clients to be aware of what they're saying on social media. You don't want to be posting things that grandma would get upset about on Facebook. It's always a good litmus test. So, and Twitter is really a good opportunity to reach out to people, because there's not that gatekeeper. You can direct message, celebrities if you really want to. Whether or not they respond is another thing, but it's a lower barrier to get connected to those people. So if you start following people, which is another thing that I would recommend doing in job search, just in general, is to follow leaders in your field, comment on their posts, get to know them. And then once you get to know them and they keep seeing your name pop up, then it's okay to kind of reach out. So I would stress that tactic more than where I'm at LinkedIn. It's all about how we're developing your profile and how you're posting on LinkedIn and what you're sharing. So it's a combination of things.
Yeah, it is. It's really it's a comprehensive thing. There's that's kind of the double-edged sword of social media. It's like everybody's out there, but the problem is everybody's out there. So you have to be pretty strategic and intentional about it. And it sounds like it plays a pretty big role in the job search. That's excellent. So I know also, Michelle, that you have a free giveaway for our listeners, a personal branding workbook. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, it's a great way to kind of start some of these exercises. That exercise about, surveying your 10 friends is in there to get some feedback, but it's all about how you can discover, develop, and then distinguish your brand. So it goes through some exercises that help you kind of reflect on yourself, and do a little bit of soul searching and even come up with a branding statement. And I would love to give it, to all of your listeners for free. If you go to my website, if you go to my website at brandyourcareer.com/uprising, there's a special page just for your listeners, and they can go and download the workbook there. And it's a great start to discovering their brand and building their brand and distinguishing themselves from their competition.
Wonderful. Yeah, we're definitely going to share that link again. I will put it in the Facebook group. For those of you who have not joined my Facebook group yet, it's called Career Uprising. And so I pop in there a lot and give extra bonus resources, articles. So this is a great kind of freebie to throw in there for folks so they can kind of get used to this concept and kind of get going with it. So you mentioned something else too. You mentioned a branding statement. Can you just tell our listeners really quick what that is? And you just in case somebody listening doesn't have one or quite know what one is yet, what is a branding statement, and how do you kind of come up with that with clients? How would they use it?
Branding statement is, I guess you can think about it as a 10 or 15-second pitch. Elevator pitches, but I once took a course from well-known people in our industry, Susan Whitcomb and Deb Dibb. And Deb Dibb has this term of your why, buy, ROI, and which is essentially a branding statement. So, when someone hires you, they're essentially buying your services. So what is that return on investment that they're going to get? That's what a branding statement should culminate in doing. So, for example, I once had a client who he was in marketing, And every place he went, like the last 3 or 4 companies he was at, they were leaders in their field, but they weren't number one. And when he went to go work for that company, he raised them to the number one company in that field. So we made a branding statement on his resume that said, fanning the flames of strong brands to spread like wildfire. So that was a little bit more creative of a branding statement, but it definitely got attention, and a lot different than results-oriented marketer, which is what every marketer should be. So that's what I mean.
An overused statement. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean by a branding statement, is to have some sort of all-encompassing branding statement. And here's another example, going back to my client Adam, when he told me, breaks down the silos, we actually wrote that at the top of his resume, breaks down silos between sales and marketing. And then we followed that up with an actual quantifiable achievement he had with a positive ROI, so that he was able to achieve at one of his companies. So that's what I mean by a branding statement. And in that workbook, there's a couple of templates to kind of help you get started in creating one of those.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, so we only have a couple minutes left here, but Michelle, tell us again, where can listeners go to learn more about you? Can you share your website and URL, and maybe any other ways that would be good for them to connect with you if they wanted to?
Yeah, sure. So my website is brandyourcareer.com, all one word. I also tweet at brandyourcareer. You can find me on LinkedIn under, LinkedIn. I'm Michelle Robin. I'm there too. And again, to get the workbook, if you go to brandyourcareer.com/uprising, it's that special page to download the personal branding workbook. And if you want to email me, it's Michelle with 2 L's at brandyourcareer.com.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Oh, well, I really, really appreciate, I know you, like I said, I know you're a busy gal because I talk to you every month on our calls together. So I really, really do appreciate you taking time out to share your expertise on this. And so any final thoughts or best practices or anything else, that people should know? I think you've about covered everything, though. I can't think of anything else.
My final thought would be, don't be afraid to be different. Being different is what's going to help you stand out. So just don't be afraid of it, because you're never going to stand out by looking like and sounding like everyone else. So that's what personal branding helps you do.
Wonderful. Well, we have just a few minutes left. So Michelle, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And I know this is going to be valuable for listeners. So everybody go to brandyourcareer.com/uprising. So I'm going to let you go, Michelle. Thank you so much. And I'm going to wrap up with our listeners here for just a minute or two. But thank you for joining us today, Michelle. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lorraine. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Very good. Very good. Okay, folks. So yeah, how did you like that? Michelle is she's a smart gal and a good friend of mine. So, all right. So that's almost about it, guys. And if you are new to the show, if you're new to my coaching practice and you want to get to know myself better as well and how I help folks just like you've got a couple of great options. And I suggest that you go for it. So one is you can sign up for my email list. That's worksmartcounseling.com/sign up. I have a free guide there that I have created for my email community. It's called Strategies for Interview Success. And it's a good one, I promise. So you can go ahead and claim that if you'd like. And then of course you can pick up Michelle's personal branding workbook at brandyourcareer.com/uprising. And also consider if you like what you heard today, consider giving us a review on iTunes. I always appreciate that as well. But I'm really excited also about next week's show. We will be live again next time. And it's going to be a good one, guys, because it's going to be all about, I'm going to finally tell you, I think I've been alluding to this story since the beginning, the very first episode, but I'm going to finally tell you guys the story, the big mama story of my career. All right. The topic next time is going to be moving on after you've been fired. Yikes, right? What a topic. And I'm going to share my story of my own termination or firing and how it was a monumental moment for me in my life and in my career. So I can't wait to share that with you. And there's also another listener question that I'm going to be answering that came through the Facebook group about that. I had a listener ask me about, what do you say to employers when you've been let go from your last job? So we're going to answer that for sure. But until then, guys, I hope you have a wonderful week and a wonderful Memorial Day. And as always, I want you to go out there and I want you to be amazing. And I will talk to you guys very, very soon. And so like I said, go ahead and grab that personal branding workbook, join the Facebook group, keep the questions coming too, guys. I absolutely love all of the questions and I'm looking forward to answering more of them next week. All right, so go out there, guys, be amazing, and I will talk to you guys next time. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard today, please consider giving the show a positive review on iTunes. It would mean a lot to me, and it would help to spread the word so that others can learn about the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't wait to connect with you again next time on Career Uprising.
This show was brought to you by inflowradio.com, the best curated talk radio network for personal development, wellness, spirituality, and conscious business.